about teens and tweens who are making a difference in the world. This is an important topic to us because we hear so many negative things about what teens are doing and what they want to start. And what we want to start doing is putting some focus on all the positive things that they're doing out there today. And I couldn't think of a better group of folks to start this initiative than my friends who are the creators of the Poketti Plushies, which would be Sydney, Toni, and Kris Loew. Hi, ladies, and welcome.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us on this Saturday. I know you guys are off on the West Coast, and we're on the East Coast, and being the product of your teenage and tween years, getting up really early on a Saturday morning is probably not your cup of tea. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah, so we're in our pajamas, just so you know.
You know what? If it weren't 1 o'clock on the East Coast, I would be too. That's why I like this, that it's only audio, because I can sit here, I can get up, grab a cup of coffee. It's in my pajamas. So we won't tell anybody. I guess we did, but it's a good thing it's not video. So I'd love to give you guys a second just to introduce yourself. So Sydney, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about you?
Well, I'm Sydney, and I'm 15 years old, and I'm a freshman in high school. And so I started the company when I was in 7th grade, and it was a 7th grade. I had a 7th grade entrepreneurial class, and so I wanted to make a product that was like an animal, but also have a functionality, so it'd be more compelling to buy. And yeah, and then it kind of took off from there.
Yeah. And what about you, Toni?
I'm Toni, and I'm 11 years old. And I'm in 7th grade right now, so I'm doing the entrepreneurial class.
Oh, we'll have to come back and ask you later once we stop talking about Poketti what you're going to be doing.
I know, yeah, exactly. Here we go again, right? Yeah. Oh my gosh, we had a trade show booth last year, and people came by, especially because there's 2 young teens in the booth standing there selling, and they all asked Toni. That was part of what Toni would say, is that she has the class, and they're like, we're gonna have side-by-side booths next year. It'd be so funny. So Toni will have her own business, but she's definitely a part of Poketti, so she said she just wants to concentrate on that. Making wise choices as a teen is definitely a life skill. Your time is, your priorities and your time are really important, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's Kris. That's the mom.
Yeah, Kris. Yeah, I was just say I'm Kris. Yeah, and I'm their mom. Very proud mom.
You should be.
Yeah,
that's a great thing. So, why don't you guys how did you come up with the name of Poketti? Let's talk about Poketti a little bit.
Yeah, so we came up with the name because all the designs, I kind of wanted to make it kind of like manga feel, like kind of like Hello Kitty and Rilakuma, like really cute and iconic. And so Poketto in Japanese means pocket, and then in Italian, when you pluralize an O, then you make it an I. So then it's like Poketto plus like plural Poketta, so that's Poketti. So it's like many pockets, I guess.
So, and if you've never seen, why don't you tell? Well, I'm not gonna. Why should I tell them? You tell them. Tell everybody what if they haven't seen it, what exactly a Poketti plushie is.
Yeah, so Poketti plushie with the pocket is a pillow with a pocket on the back to hold your phone, glasses, remote control, or any little small treasures that you have. So they're all like animal styled. So we have a penguin named Sydney the penguin, and a bunny named Toni the bunny, which are named after me and my sister, and a kitty named Roxy the kitty, and Baxter the puppy.
So I have to ask, this is actually a question I was going to ask later, but do you have any new designs coming out?
Toni, do you want to?
Well, yeah, we're working on Series 2 and deciding what animals we're going to
do.
Yeah, we're going to.
That's going to be a fun discovery process.
Yeah, definitely.
They have, our top I think my top is a monkey. I've always loved monkeys. Yeah, it's so cute. And I think next year is the year of the monkey, isn't it? Yeah, in the Chinese New Year, the year of the monkey, so it could be a good luck charm for us. Mm-hmm. And a panda might be nice, right? Yeah, anyway, that is the fun part, definitely. Yeah. And the design is very modern and simple, and because it was originally hand sewn by Sydney when she was doing it as a class project, but now that we've done real manufacturing, we still kept to that simple design. And so the design itself is really open-ended, so you can turn it into many different things pretty easily. So that's
Yeah.
the options are wide and vast, and it's making those decisions is hard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, a pony would be good. Anyway.
Oh, a bunny would be good. So, okay, so you did this for a class. So, what made you say, okay, I really like this idea. I'm going to take it beyond. So, I mean, I'm sure most of your classmates probably said, okay, I got an A in this class, I got a B in this class, I'm done, let's move on. We're in the 8th grade now. So, what made you guys decide we have something here? Let's make this a family business.
So, it sold really well at school, and like we sold out at every sale, and people really loved it. And there was a lot of demand. And my family's like my mom and dad are both designers, and so but they both work from home, so they like know the value of having your own individual business, like you're not working for a big company. And so then they wanted to, since they saw that we had such a good little idea and that I had the drive to like do this entrepreneurial process. And so then they said, oh, well, why not? Our client could be our daughter. So, yeah, and so that was kind of the basis, but also we were just so excited, and we always talked about, like, making a little family business. Mm-hmm. And so Poketti was kind of the perfect way to make that dream, like, take off, I guess.
Yeah.
How does this impact you specifically, Sydney? Because at your age, there's a lot of pull on your attention and on your time. So how does this affect if you have to make a decision between, I know you're not going to do a lot of trade shows this year, but let's go back to last year. Let's say it was the 8th grade dance, right? You're in the 9th grade, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say there was an 8th grade dance. Our 8th grade has a big dance. And you had to make the choice between, do I go to the dance or do I go and do this trade show? How do you make that decision? Was that hard for you?
Well, I mean, I love Poketti, and every moment that I spend on Poketti is, like, so fun. So, I mean, even if it was going to a dance, I think I would think about, I don't know, I mean, it's hard, but I think I would pick the trade show because it's so fun, and it will really benefit my family and my business. And although 8th grade dances are fun, but I'll just know that, later on there'll be more to come, and so I just want to like spend it launching my business. I don't know, I'm not like a huge person to go to dances, but yeah, I think Poketti would overrule that though.
Yeah. For me, it was like a great. Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I was actually gonna ask how. I mean, how you handled that, because I'm sure you and I, as parents and adults, Kris, know that we got a lot of time to work in our life. And we don't always have these years. And I'm not saying either decision is right or wrong, because I know my entrepreneurial spirit probably would have chosen the same thing. But I also now know, too, as the parent, that I might say, you'll always have time to work. You're not always going to have time to be a kid and do things like the 8th grade dance or your prom or homecoming or this, that, or the other. How do you balance that, Kris?
Well, this is going to sound selfish now, actually, because you mentioned in your intro that there's a lot of time spent now. Parents talk about the negatives, and a lot of the things I am hearing in our community is that teens are like pulling away from their parents or spending so much more time with friends, and they're not always making necessarily the wisest choices with that type of if that pressure or that drive is I don't know, they're not quite ready to be completely on their own. And I see some of I can't really just articulate it, but it's not all that productive, really, I guess. And so Poketti gave us a really creative way to work together. And while so many teens are kind of pulling away from their parents, Poketti's brought us closer. And so doing something like a trade show instead of an 8th grade dance, although she would have gone to the 8th grade dance, I do want to say that, like, Sydney and Toni are both ballerinas, and they're always, their performances and their ballet and their activities come first. And a lot of times that means I pick up the Poketti baton, and I do a lot on when they're busy, because I do want them to be kids and have this time. But it's kind of good for us because it has brought us closer in a productive way versus spending, 2 hours on Instagram and posting, 200 selfies. She's, drawing another illustration.
Do you know my daughter?
Oh, yeah. They're probably friends on Instagram, Kristen.
No, and I agree with you. And I, like I said, I mean, I'm not playing devil's advocate there, but I know I started working not on my own business because growing up in the 80s, I was being raised by a parent that was very much, you went to work for the man, you went to work for the big company. And I am preaching to my kids the same thing your mom's preaching to you, which is, as you can do whatever and literally, our parents have always said that generation after generation, you can do whatever you want to, but you guys are truly in a position that you can. And that's a remarkable place to be in, because I don't know how your mom feels about it, but up until just recently, I worked for myself, and it's a great feeling to be in true ownership of your destiny. And I think that's a super important thing, especially in this day and time where it is such a tumultuous work environment, that you just never, like I had friends just this week that entire company got laid off. So you just never know. And and I have a friend that puts it very well, you don't need a job, you need an income. Right? Yeah. So you need a passion. So you need that passion. And I agree with you on that, Kris. There's so many kids that don't have that passion, that I love to see the entrepreneurial spirit at such a young age.
Yeah. And Sydney and Toni have both been a real inspiration to the class. You mentioned most of the kids got their A or B and then went on to high school. They didn't look back. Their entrepreneurial class was that, and it was over. But there have been so many girls that have reached out to both Sydney and Toni from that community and other high schools and said, well, how did you do it? And what did you do? And they've gone to talk to entrepreneurial clubs and back to other teams that from GM Girls Middle School, where they went to school, to say, we want to do that too. And a lot of times when Sydney and Toni tell them exactly what was involved, their eyes glaze over and they're like, oh, okay, well, maybe not.
It's not easy.
It was not easy. And it is not easy.
It's not easy.
But every now and then you get that spark, and you're right, this is the best time for girls right now, the best time for kids of their generation, because there's so many outlets and there's so many ways to be passionate and create your own thing. I mean, even if it's a small little Etsy site and you're knitting beanie hats or whatever, anything can happen for these kids, and it's so amazing.
Well, and I think you and I may have talked about this, Kris, and if we via an email exchange or something. But that's the girl who started Origami Owl. It's the same thing.
Same thing.
It's you are familiar with that, right?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Okay,
but I don't.
It's the I don't have one on, but it's the jewelry company where it looks like it's a capsule, for lack of a better phrase. It's a medallion, and you put little trinkets inside of it that so it's like a charm. It's like a charm bracelet or charm necklace, right? Well, she was 16 and she wanted to buy a car. And so as she put it, like all of her friends were going out to dances and hanging out and doing nothing. She was having jewelry parties. She was going and creating these charm necklaces, and it's a multi-million-dollar company now.
We met one of her reps. That's so funny. She didn't mention the girl was 16. Yeah. We bought one of those. Yeah, at one of the shows there was a woman. So she's empowered other women to sell her product, and that's another step for us, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, and it's a mother-daughter. It's the initiative is encouraged to be a mother-daughter event. So like my cousin here, she sells it, and her daughter, she started along like when the company first came out, and she has 2 or 3 daughters as well. I mean, they're adults, but they sell it too. So it's encouraged that if one does it, you do it with your daughter. So I think it's a pretty cool concept as far as that goes. So Toni, let's talk about you a little bit. What's your big entrepreneurial project for the 7th grade?
So we're making these glitter perfumes, but and I don't, after this class, I don't think I'm going to carry it on. I think I'm just going to support Poketti afterward, maybe.
Okay.
I think, because we've already gotten started and things, so I just want to support Sydney.
Oh, that's great. But you've gotten a lot out of it. A lot of the girls, they bring up Toni and they talk about that she's already running a company, and you kind of had a lot of the pressure, the jobs and the tasks rested on you, right? Because you've been through it already. It seemed as though. in your team, right? Yeah. So it was good. I love to see that your experience has paid off because you were really a driver for your project. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so before we finish the show, I want to take a real quick break and let everyone know that if you have any questions for any of the three that are on today, Sydney, Toni, or Kris, leave us a comment and we will make sure that they get the questions later. Also, if you have an idea for a topic or interested in potentially being a guest on our show, leave us a comment or email me at info@10to20parenting.com. Now I'd like to take a break and hear a word from our sponsor, Be On Your Way Travel, who reminds us that sometimes you just have to make a break for it. Okay, so when you guys started this, let's talk about what's the most challenging thing that you've come into? What was the biggest thing that you, when you started on this journey, that, if you don't mind telling us, what was the biggest thing that you hit so far that you maybe frustrated you or maybe said, this just isn't worth it. I don't want to do this anymore.
Well, there's a lot of things like Poketti and launching a business was pretty new and it was a learning experience for all of us. But I'd say the things that were the most difficult was doing a Kickstarter campaign because it was very hard, like waiting for a whole month. Luckily, we made it and we got $20,000. But yeah, and so that really. But we did the Kickstarter campaign to get the word out, but also for manufacturing, which I would say was the most difficult part. Like we went online and we found a great manufacturer who does UNICEF products. So although it's in China and we wanted to have it in the United States, but unfortunately there's no more plush factories in the United States anymore.
Really?
Yeah, it's so crazy. But you can get it for a really high price, but it's low quantity. But in China, it's really the way to go, because if you want to get a lot of product for low price. But manufacturing is a lot of money, and when we sent the manufacturing order, it was a lot. And I mean, it's a really big commitment. So when we sent the check-in, it was like, okay, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do Poketti, yeah. So it was pretty hard to get all our stuff across and send all the details with the work with the sheets that have all the measurements, and yeah, it was pretty complicated, but in the end, got all the.
So how much of this did your parents let you do? How many did they really take a hands-off approach and just kind of guide you?
Well, I mean, it's hard since me and Toni both go to school. So, I mean, we're gone away for 6 hours every day. So that's hard to dedicate a lot of time to Poketti. So whenever we're at school, my mom contacts people and blogs and kind of helps us along. And then we kind of check in at the end of the day, and if I need to fulfill something or if I need to check a thing or design like an activity card or proof something, then I'll do that. But there's not a lot of time, so our parents have done our parents have done a lot, but yeah.
I think of myself when they're at school as kind of the sales and marketing director of the company, but Sydney's the CEO, and no big decisions are made until she gets home. And if I do push something forward that she doesn't know about, she kind of gets after me. And she's like, we applied to Shark Tank, for example. And I said, it was like a whim. I said, yes, we have heard so many people say you should go on Shark Tank because it's like kind of the perfect story and they're kinder to kids. So I think, hopefully. But I sent the application and she was so mad. Sydney came home. She's like, how come I didn't read that? And I should have known. And yeah, it was really funny. But I get a little, I just want things so desperately to move forward. I want good news when they come home and kind of report back to the boss that I did a good job that day, and work for my 15-year-old. And but time, it is an investment. We had to order 20,000 of these initially, and that was half of what they wanted to sell it to us. Because unfortunately, you can satisfy your stuffed toy need pretty cheaply in the United States, and people expect to pay not a lot, you can go into any store and put down $10 or $5 and get a pretty cute stuffed toy. So we had a unique and a kind of an upper scale product. We put a lot of detail into it, even though it looks really simple. And our price point is higher because we didn't order as many, even though to us it was huge. Like a 40-foot container, shipping container arrived.
Where is this? Where are you keeping all this stuff?
Oh my God.
So we're keeping it in a lot of places. We have a friend who has a warehouse where we keep most of them. Like when we have the big shipment, we put them all there. But also we rented out a storage locker, and we have tons of Poketti in there. And then a lot of them are even upstairs and like in our living room too.
We haven't had a dinner party in a long time because there are boxes everywhere.
Yeah, I have a friend who manufactured T-shirts for a while, and I asked her, I was like, "Where do you keep all this stuff?" And it was in her garage. I mean, it's just you don't think as the end consumer, you just see the big box stores, and you don't think about these smaller manufacturers or these smaller sellers like you guys. So what about Shark Tank? Is that something that you're working on actively? I actually have had a couple of other associates that have gone through the whole process. So,
I'll have to ask you about that later. Yeah, we put in the application, but I imagine they get a lot. So I don't know. They received it, I know, but it's just kind of a waiting game.
Did you have to do a video?
We didn't. We didn't. I think now they first just have you do an email. I think they do an initial screen, and then they might ask for a video. But they do have open calls and things. But we'll see.
I have to hope that since it's youth based, that you guys have an you have a little bit of an edge there.
Yeah, I hope so.
Let's hope. I'll be terrifying. I'm going to send the girls in alone. I'm not going to go in there. That would be awful.
Yeah.
I'll be the one crying in the lobby.
So one of the things I thought was really cute when you guys, when I got some of the plushies from you, is your roles, your titles. So let's tell everybody what your titles are.
Toni, what's your title?
I think
You don't remember?
Character development.
Yeah, chief character development.
So Toni's character development.
And I'm cuteness control officer.
Cuteness control officer. And Kris, what are you?
I think I'm just a founder, or maybe the one who signs the checks. So I might have the fancy title. Although, so CEO, mom, I guess.
I thought it was something else, but then I think Dad's was funny.
Dad's is funny. My husband's also named Kris, and his is Chief Speed Bump.
I love that. I told my husband that. I'm like, that's you. We don't even have a business, and that's you. Well, we do have a business, but I'm like, that's you. You're just the speed bump in everybody's life.
Right, exactly. He's been remarkable. He's an industrial designer, a product designer, and so he has a lot to say, but he's remarkably hands off as far as the girls concerned. Like, he's been really an enabler of them doing this, and I've been kind of proud of him for he's made a couple real executive decisions, like with the placement of the puppy's ears. They were a little lower, and he fought Sydney like long and hard to raise the ears up. These little tiny things, but it was kind of the biggest.
He won.
Yeah, he won.
All right, so we've already talked about. All right, so some of the things, you're not doing trade shows anymore. So what other kind of things do you have coming up for this year? Do you have any big plans for this year? Or are you just really trying to, keep letting everybody know that you're there?
Yeah. Well, we were thinking of launching a web series, so kind of having a Life of the Young Entrepreneur YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. So I think that would be called Poketti if people want to subscribe. But it's gonna be like following me and Toni, and we're gonna be giving tips about what it's like to be a young entrepreneur and balancing school and activities and how to run a business. And also we had a TV commercial, and so it was near the holiday season for last year, and I think we might want to run it a couple times more or make another one. And so just kind of spreading ourselves online and in social media is probably the plan. Yeah.
So, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kris.
Oh no, and I think the hardest part has been picking up the phone and calling and actually cold calling. You'll see these products and, we have Target. I don't know I think it's nationwide, Walmart, things like that, like big stores. Not necessarily that big, but just a national chain. I think while they're at school, really need to make the tough calls and try to get us and have a partner that way. And I think that's really the way to distribute our product, is to get a really good retail partner and just have it be national. And we're on Amazon now, but people still need to find you on Amazon. And if they don't know about you, they're not finding you. So so that's, I think, a big goal of ours, is to get one nice big retail partner.
Well, and it just makes your life simpler.
Right.
I'd rather have one person selling 100 things than selling 100 things to one person individually. It's one of the questions I did want to ask you. We've got about 5 minutes left. What advice do you have? What advice, here's a great example. My youngest daughter, I think, is probably the biggest entrepreneur. My 11-year-old is probably the biggest entrepreneur-minded child that I have. She does not have the execution. So she... the bottle cap jewelry, remember? So for a while, we went and we got all the stuff for her, and then she went and sold stuff before she made it. And I'm like, you can't do that. You need to go and give everybody their money back. You need to hire her as your salesperson, because she's really good at that piece of it.
Actually, great.
She could sell an object that didn't even exist. So that's your kind of salesperson that you need. So what's your advice to someone that has an idea?
So if you have an idea, if you really want to launch a product, you just have to know that it's a lot of work, and that you'll be committing a lot of time and money, but it's totally worth it, because every step of the way is so fun, and we learn so much as a whole family. And also to remember to stay positive even when things are looking pretty grim, or when sales are kind of at a standstill, or your campaign isn't fully going through. You just have to keep pushing and reminding yourself that, to be optimistic.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. And I think to get to, and have that positive energy all the time, because it does, when there are slow spots, we found that we live in Palo Alto, California, and there's a lot of little kids. It's a big family town, and there are days where we'll just walk around and just hand a Poketti, just carry them around, and we see a really cute little kid, and we just give it to them and tell them the story. And sometimes just having that human interaction when you're feeling kind of alone, because running a business by yourself, or even as a family, it's very insulated, and you can tend to spiral through your own little emotions alone in a room for a long time. But once the minute you have some outward, another smile, and that's, I think, what drove Sydney in the beginning to have a business, right?
Yeah, that's my favorite part of having the whole business, is seeing people happy with my product and something that I made. Their reaction is the best part of the whole thing.
Yeah. So sometimes we just create that opportunity just to give us a little boost. And that could be just handing a Poketti to a little kid at Starbucks or something.
That's awesome. Yeah, I gave actually my best friend's daughter one last night. I gave her, she's very into penguins. And the first comment that she made was how soft it was, but she loved it. All the girls loved it. They each got one. So, and then I gave Sadie one, and she loved, because she's all, like I said, all into penguins. And, but she loved how soft it was. And then, of course, I immediately followed up. I'm and gave her the story behind it. Because I think the story is so important, I think. And you guys know that. It's not just some random stuffed plush. There's a story behind it. And it's just an admirable... I just love it. I love the initiative that you have behind it. So is there anything, as we're going to start wrapping up, is there anything you'd like to say? Just so you know, I am going to put all of the contact information for you guys. So why don't you tell us how they can contact you, and then we're also going to put it in the blog post for the podcast, so how they can find you. So the links will be there too. But tell everybody right now that's listening how they can get in touch with you and find these fabulous plushies.
Yeah, so if you want to buy Poketti, you can go on Poketti.com, and
what'd you spell that?
Oh yeah, so www.poketti.com, and also you can contact us at Kris@Poketti.com, And we are also in many little retail stores and online at Amazon and places like that. And yeah.
Poketti.com is
Poketti.com is the best.
Yeah, the best. Because Amazon will just send you a little Amazon box, but we put a lot of love into when you order from our site, it's a little different experience, I think.
It is, yeah. It is.
Yeah, we get a lot of extra stuff.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, that's our show this week, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Please make sure you subscribe to our podcast on either iTunes or Stitcher. And if you could please leave us a review and a rating on iTunes, we'd appreciate it. Don't forget to leave a comment if you have a question. And remember, you can find these kind of topics and more at our site, 10to20.com. You can also find all the links that we talked about today on the site, as well as this blog post that will go. And our theme music is Sunshine from Kevin MacLeod. And I am Kristen Dokas. Thank you, Sydney, Toni, and Kris Loew from Poketti Plushies with the Pocket. And until next week, remember that the time between 10 and 20 is really just an age and not a sentence. Bye, girls.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.